I'm a 32-year-old woman and I got married just 8 months ago. Everyone I cared about showed up for the big day. Everyone except my parents and my younger sister Molin, who's 30. My parents' decision to skip my wedding stunned me, but my sister's absence? That didn't really surprise me. We've never been close, and if I'm honest, I should have seen it coming. To give you some context, my parents have always favored Molin. I can't completely blame them. It's almost as if she was designed to be perfect. All through her life, she excelled at everything she touched. As a child, she won every spelling bee, science fair, and talent show. In high school, she was class president, valedictorian, prom queen, the whole package. She's tall, slim, and photogenic enough that she started modeling in college, eventually shifting her focus to a business degree. I still remember her first modeling gig in her sophomore year. My parents threw a lavish party to celebrate, inviting family and her friends, and hung her professional headshot above the fireplace, where it still hangs today. That same year, I earned my degree in computer science. Their reaction? A quick well done before they went back to planning her next photo shoot. Since then, Molin has climbed the corporate ladder at lightning speed. 30, she's already a senior executive with a corner office and a company car. Meanwhile, I've built a steady career as a mid-level software developer at a reputable firm. I'm proud of my work, it's stable and rewarding, but it's not the kind of job my parents brag about over dinner. And then there's the physical comparison. I'm shorter and caviar than my sister. Growing up, my mother constantly made comments about my weight, signed me up for workout programs I never wanted, and put me on diets I didn't ask for. Molin never has trouble with her weight, she'd say. Or you could look like your sister if you just tried harder. By high school, I learned to tune it out, but the words stuck. Eventually, I accepted the reality. My accomplishments would never shine as brightly in their eyes as Molin's did. I spent years chasing their approval, taking the classes they suggested, joining the clubs they recommended, even dabbling in modeling, which ended in disaster and became a running joke for Molin. No matter what I did, I was the other daughter. By my mid-20s, I gave up trying to compete. I focused on my own life, my own career, and relationships with people who valued me for who I was. I kept my relationship with my parents polite but distant, only seeing them during obligatory holiday gatherings. I'd sit there smiling as they gushed over Molin's latest promotion or exotic vacation, and they never seemed to notice I was keeping them at arm's length. It was at a tech conference that I met my now husband through a mutual friend. He actually noticed me, in a way my family never had. He appreciated my dry humor, my programming skills, and yes, even my body type. From day one, he never hinted that I should change or compared me to anyone else. Through 4 years of dating, he proposed one quiet evening at home while we ate takeout with our favorite show playing in the background. It was perfect in its simplicity. Naturally, I called my parents to share the news. That should have been my first red flag. There was no excitement, no congratulations, just silence. My mother finally broke it by suggesting I improve my physical condition before the wedding. My father said little to nothing. At our engagement party, my husband noticed something odd. My parents spent most of the night huddled over my mother's phone, whispering to Molin, who was apparently crying. Later, he told me he overheard them saying, "This wasn't supposed to happen. We never expected Rebecca to marry first." During the wedding planning, my mother made it clear she had little interest in helping. She had already made Pinterest boards for Molin's future wedding years earlier, despite Molin not even being engaged at the time. When I found a simple but elegant A-line dress that made me feel beautiful, she just remarked it was practical for my figure. Thankfully, my future mother-in-law treated me like the daughter she never had. Together, we handled most of the arrangements. I checked and double-checked the guest list with my fiancé before sending out both paper and electronic invitations. I know my parents received theirs. Red receipts confirmed it. When they didn't RSVP, I called, texted, and emailed multiple times. Their replies were vague excuses about being too busy to check their schedule. Eventually, I stopped asking. My in-laws stepped in and helped with everything, from floral arrangements to seating charts. Even at my bridal shower, hosted by my husband's sister, the obvious absence of my family was never mentioned aloud. But on the wedding day, their absence was like a physical wound. Seeing the empty seats in the front row, skipping the father-daughter dance, those moments hurt in a way I can't describe. After our honeymoon, I decided to confront the issue. When I finally got my parents on the phone, they claimed they'd been deeply hurt because they never received a formal invitation. My mother launched into a long speech about how I had excluded them from such an important moment and how she had always dreamed of helping plan her daughter's weddings. I was baffled. I knew for a fact they had received both the paper and electronic invites. I even checked our records during the call, confirmed delivery, confirmed read receipts. Still, I didn't call them out on the lie. Instead, I apologized just to end the conversation. Later, my husband reminded me of little moments that now made more sense. Their lack of joy when we got engaged, their constant excuses for not helping with the wedding. He hadn't mentioned it before because he didn't want to add to my stress, but looking back, the pattern was obvious. It boiled down to one truth. My parents couldn't stomach the idea that their less successful daughter got married before their golden child. Their behavior only confirmed what I had always feared, that in their eyes I would never measure up to Molen. The most painful part wasn't their absence. It was realizing my wedding day, a moment meant to celebrate love and new beginnings, had instead become another casualty in their endless effort to preserve the perfect family image centered around Molen. Recently, I heard through relatives that Molen is engaged after dating someone for just a year. My parents are ecstatic, already booking high-end venues and shopping for designer gowns with her. All those mother-daughter moments I never got are now hers. But something interesting happened. Several family members have decided not to attend her wedding or engagement party. Apparently, my parents' behavior at my wedding has become a topic of conversation, and not in a flattering way. When people ask me why they didn't come to my wedding, I tell them the truth. They couldn't handle me marrying before their favorite daughter. I don't add drama or beg for sympathy, I just give the facts. A few days ago, my parents called me furious. They accused me of deliberately trying to sabotage Molen's big day. According to them, relatives were using petty excuses not to attend her celebrations, and it was all because I had been poisoning people against her. One of my cousins, who had spoken with Molen, told her the truth. People simply didn't want to go because they had heard about how my parents treated me. That apparently was my fault too. My parents insisted I was just jealous of my sister's lavish wedding plans and spreading lies to ruin them. The reality? I've only ever told people exactly what happened. The truth makes them look bad, maybe they should rethink their behavior. After reading a wave of encouraging comments online, I decided it was time to speak to them face to face. When I brought up their actions during my wedding, they immediately went on the defensive, claiming I was jealous of Molen and had orchestrated everything. Instead of defending myself like I usually would, I agreed with them, but not the way they expected. "You're right," I told them. "I am jealous, not of her career, her looks, or her accomplishments. I'm jealous of the unconditional love and support you've always given her and never even tried to give me." Silence. Then my mother said I was exaggerating, insisting they had always treated us equally. Something inside me broke at that moment. Years of buried feelings poured out. I told them about every birthday overshadowed by one of Molen's achievements. How my graduation dinner was canceled because she had a modeling callback. How her prom dress cost more than all my college textbooks for a year. I reminded them how they had spent years daydreaming about Molen's hypothetical wedding while showing no interest in my real one. How painful it was to see their seats empty on my big day, and how my mother-in-law had to step in to help with everything, from choosing my dress to organizing the reception. Their response? They flipped it back on me. "Why didn't you ever speak up if you felt this way?" my father asked, as if I hadn't been trying to communicate my feelings for years. My mother accused me of being unfair and spiteful for sharing my experiences with other relatives. Then she said something that made everything click. We never thought you'd go so far as to ruin Molin's wedding out of spite, but we always knew you were insecure about her success. This is not how we raised you." In that moment, I knew they would never truly hear me. To them, my feelings had nothing to do with the situation. It was all about protecting Molin's happiness. Even a conversation about their absence from my wedding had turned into a defense of her. For once, I didn't try to soften my words or back down. "You're right about one thing," I told them. "You raised me to believe I would never measure up, that Molin's accomplishments mattered more than mine, and that your image of a perfect family was more important than my feelings. But you also, without meaning to, taught me that I deserve better than this." My father's voice was calm when he replied, but his words were cold. "Maybe it's time we stop pretending to be good parents since you've already decided we're not. We thought you'd help fix this as part of the family, but clearly you've made your choice." The final blow came from my mother. "Maybe you just couldn't handle not being the center of attention. You've chosen to play the victim, that's on you." I didn't argue. Why would I? Everything they had just said only confirmed what I'd been telling them all along. They couldn't take responsibility for anything, not even a fraction of it. So I ended the call with a simple goodbye and hung up. To my surprise, I felt lighter. Yes, I cried afterward, but they weren't the gut-wrenching, desperate tears I used to cry when I was younger. These were tears of release. For the first time, I had said everything I needed to say, without censoring myself, without apologizing for how I felt. Later that evening, my husband found me sitting on the back porch, watching the sunset. He sat beside me and took my hand in his. We stayed like that for a while in silence until I asked, "They're never going to change, are they?" "No," he said softly, giving my hand a squeeze. "But you have. And that's what matters." And he was right. I'm not that little girl who begged for their approval anymore. I no longer need them to validate the person I've become. Accepting that they will never be the parents I wanted still stings, but it's nothing compared to the years I spent hoping they'd change. For the first time, I genuinely don't care about Molin's wedding or the family drama surrounding it. I've said my piece, and whatever happens now is on them. In a strange way, it feels like a lifelong weight has finally been lifted. It's not the happy ending I once imagined, but maybe it's the ending I needed. The freedom to stop chasing a kind of love that should have come naturally. 3 days after that conversation with my parents, things took an unexpected turn. Molin decided to get involved. Yesterday morning, she sent me a carefully worded text. Even through the screen, I could hear the condescending tone she'd perfected over the years. "What you said to Mom and Dad was completely inappropriate," she began. "They've been there for us our entire lives, giving us everything. You can't just accuse them of being bad parents because you're insecure about the choices you've made." She went on, layering her message with a mix of moral superiority and subtle jabs. "I understand your wedding might not have been everything you wanted, but that doesn't mean you should try to ruin mine. There's nothing wrong with having a celebration that reflects the effort some of us put in to meet certain standards, Rebecca. Not everything is a competition." I didn't reply. I've learned that responding to her only gives her more ammunition. Instead, I blocked her number and moved on with my day. But Molin has never been one to tolerate being ignored. A few hours later, my husband called me at work, laughing so hard he could barely get the words out. Apparently, since she couldn't reach me, Molin had tracked down his personal number, probably through a mutual acquaintance, and started sending him a series of messages explaining in detail why my relationship with her had always been strained. She opened formally. "As Rebecca's sister and someone who cares deeply about our family, I feel compelled to reach out." But it didn't take long for her real motive to come through. She told my husband it was his responsibility to help me behave more appropriately, now that he was the man in my life. She claimed family dynamics were complex and implied that someone with my sensitivity might not understand the bigger picture. Then came the kicker. She suggested that maintaining good relationships with successful family members like herself could be beneficial for his future. According to her, my behavior was damaging my own prospects, and by extension, his. My husband, a highly accomplished software architect with an MBA, saw right through her act. He found the whole thing hilarious, especially her assumption that her job title or networking opportunities would impress him. "She really doesn't know me at all, does she?" he said when we read the messages together that evening. Instead of feeling hurt or angry, I actually felt free. Watching her usual tactics bounce right off my husband was oddly satisfying. Seeing her attempts at manipulation fail completely made it clear she had no real power over me anymore. It also reminded me of her old patterns. When we were in high school, she used to turn my friends against me if she couldn't bully me directly. Different decades, same strategy. The difference now is me. 10 years ago, her words would have sent me spiraling into self-doubt. Even 5 years ago, they would have stung. But today, I just laughed. My husband's reply to her was perfect. "Thank you for your concern for Rebecca's well-being. As her husband, my role is to support her happiness, not manage her behavior. If you have concerns, please direct them to her. Have a good day." She sent one last dramatic text. "I see she's poisoned you against the family too. Don't say I didn't try to help when this all blows up in your faces." Ironically, her little intervention only brought my husband and me closer. Instead of arguing or worrying about family fallout, we joked about her texts and started planning a weekend getaway. It hit me then. Real family isn't about keeping up appearances or forcing everyone to follow one person's script. It's about standing together, laughing together, and supporting each other even when things get messy. That's why I've decided to stay completely out of the chaos surrounding Mullen's wedding. No matter how hard they try to drag me into it, I'm not playing their game. My husband and I are focused on building our own happiness, and honestly, that feels like the ultimate victory. They say success is the best revenge, but I'm realizing true success isn't about impressing anyone. It's about being content with your choices and surrounding yourself with people who want to see you grow, not tear you down. By that measure, I'm more successful now than I've ever been. 2 weeks after Mullen's failed attempt to sway my husband, things took an unexpected turn. My parents, apparently desperate to repair their reputation, began contacting relatives one by one. They told anyone who would listen that I was spreading vicious lies, because I was jealous of Mullen's perfect wedding. In their version of events, her celebration would be far grander and more sophisticated than mine, and I supposedly couldn't handle that. Their latest excuse for skipping my wedding? That I intentionally sent their invitations to an old email and an outdated mailing address, despite the fact they've lived in the same house for 30 years and haven't changed their email since the 1990s. But here's the thing, it's not working. Not only are people refusing to believe them, but some relatives are openly sharing their own stories about my parents' favoritism. One aunt admitted that my mother pulled similar stunts at other family weddings, always making sure Mullen was the center of attention. The ripple effect has been surprising. Some key family members who were expected to play major roles in Mullen's wedding have quietly withdrawn their support. The exclusive venue they were boasting about might now be out of reach. Even a luxury dress shop owned by a family friend suddenly has scheduling conflicts that conveniently overlap with Mullen's fittings. The real breaking point came at a family gathering last weekend. It started innocently. Someone asked if they could see photos from my wedding. That simple question set my mother off. She launched into a defensive rant about how I'd changed since getting married and was trying to destroy the family. Her outburst stunned several relatives who hadn't known the full story. Instead of winning sympathy, she only exposed herself further. I watched as a few people exchanged looks, clearly starting to connect the dots about the way my parents operate. The irony is almost poetic. The harder they work to protect their perfect family image, the more cracks start to show. Each time they try to justify skipping my wedding, they reveal more about who they really are. The more they push the narrative that I'm the villain, the more people start to question them. Family members who once stayed neutral are now openly picking sides. Even my father's brother, who has always kept quiet to keep the peace, came up to me afterward and apologized for not speaking out sooner. He told me he and his family won't be attending any of Molin's wedding events. The best part? I haven't had to lift a finger to defend myself. I'm not sending out long explanations or rebuttals because the truth is doing all the work for me. Every time my parents or Molin try to twist the story, they end up revealing more of their own manipulative behavior. Looking back, I can see that all those years I stayed silent to keep the peace didn't actually protect anything. All it did was allow their behavior to continue unchecked. My husband summed it up perfectly the other night. They built this perfect family facade over decades, but it was held together with favoritism and emotional manipulation. Eventually, something was going to break it apart. You just stopped holding it up. And he's right. I'm in a better place now than I've ever been. I'm no longer chasing my parents' approval. I'm no longer walking on eggshells to avoid upsetting Molin. I'm done trying to keep their family fantasy alive. For the first time, I'm living entirely on my own terms, and I can't believe how good it feels. I've realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't a grand gesture, it's letting the truth speak for itself. By stepping back and refusing to engage, I've given my parents and Molin the space to reveal exactly who they are to the rest of the family. And the more they talk, the clearer the picture becomes for everyone else. I'm deeply grateful for the support I've found online. Strangers have shown me more empathy, understanding, and encouragement than my own family ever did. Strange, but sometimes you need to see what real support looks like from people who don't owe you anything to truly recognize how unhealthy your own family dynamic has been. I no longer worry about their approval or whether they'll ever see me as enough. I've stopped wondering if things might one day change because now I know I don't need them to. For the first time in my life, my focus is completely on building a life with people who genuinely care for me, starting with my husband, who's been my rock through all of this. It's not the picture-perfect family ending I once dreamed of, but it's real. And honestly, I think that's better. Sometimes you have to let go of the version of your family you wished for and face the reality of the one you have. My parents will likely never admit to their favoritism, never take responsibility for the pain they've caused, and never see me as anything other than second to Molin. But accepting that truth has freed me in ways I never thought possible. Now I measure success not by their approval but by my own happiness. I've learned that true family is made of the people who choose to stand by you, who lift you up instead of tear you down, and who value you for exactly who you are. And that's the life I'm building, one where I'm no longer competing in a game I never agreed to play, and where my worth isn't determined by anyone's biased scoreboard. It's not the ending I expected, but it's exactly the one I needed.